Hello, everyone. Today, our focus is on one of the most astonishing, complex, and transformative stories in modern history, the phenomenal rise of the People's Republic of China. Few nations on Earth have undergone such a dramatic and rapid metamorphosis, and even fewer have fundamentally reshaped the global order with such speed and determination. What has unfolded in China over the past 40 years is far more than a simple economic success story. It is a sweeping, multi-layered narrative of collapse, traumatic revival, ambitious strategic planning, intense internal conflict, and technological ambition on a truly planetary scale. Consider this. Just 50 years ago, 4 out of every 5 Chinese citizens worked in the fields, and a staggering 96% of Chinese people lived below the poverty line. Yet today, China produces nearly 1/3 of all manufactured goods on the planet, engages in complex trade negotiations, and participates in the space race alongside the Russian Federation and the United States of America. All this has been achieved under the continuous rule of the Communist Party of China, and without the implementation of broad Western-style democracy. How exactly did China manage, over the past 30 years, to overtake nations it once seemed utterly impossible to catch? Let us delve into the unique history of how the most enduring living empire is reclaiming its global supremacy. The map of the world shows where the most ancient civilizations first emerged. The earliest known civilization, Mesopotamia, arose about 6,000 years ago in what is now the Republic of Iraq. A millennium later, the Harappan civilization appeared in modern-day Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and the Egyptian civilization developed in North Africa. However, most of these ancient societies vanished. Only the youngest of them, the Chinese civilization, which originated 4,000 years ago, not only exists today, but is also challenging for global economic leadership. China was unified by its first emperor in 221 before the Common Era. From this point onward, the Chinese Empire expanded and established commerce along the Great Silk Road. Chinese silk, tea, and porcelain made their way as far as the Roman Empire. Crucially, China fiercely guarded its technologies, threatening anyone who disclosed them with the death penalty, and strictly barred foreigners from entering the country. Even the secrets of silk production reached Europe only through deception, via 2 monks sent by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I. Geographical barriers, the high Himalayas, the endless Gobi Desert, and impenetrable jungles afforded China centuries of a natural monopoly on unique and globally valuable goods. This isolation led to the concept of the Celestial Empire, or Tianxia, which positioned China at the center of the world, viewing everything outside its borders as chaotic and barbaric. In the 16th century, European ships began arriving at the southern Chinese port of Guangzhou seeking new markets. Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and English traders sailed there. Guangzhou developed into an international port, and the Chinese emperor permitted foreigners to establish trading posts, but they were restricted to the coast and could not reside inland. Furthermore, China only agreed to trade for silver. Approximately 80% of the world's silver was mined in the Americas during this period. The lack of precious metals within China had already prompted the invention of paper money as early as the 11th century, but silver remained highly valued. Consequently, a significant portion of all silver mined by the Kingdom of Spain was shipped across the Pacific Ocean to the Republic of the Philippines to purchase Chinese goods. China had little need for European goods, which were considered inferior. With a population estimated at 170 million in the 17th century, more than all of Europe combined, China was largely self-sufficient. Its fertile lands and vast population, before the Industrial Revolution, made China independent of external influence. China's share of the global economy before the early 19th century was approximately 1/4 of the world's gross domestic product. However, this share began to decline sharply. China was incredibly stable, but its isolation meant new technologies emerged slowly, and the growing population consumed all economic growth. Meanwhile, the nations of Western Europe were constantly compelled to compete, stimulating growth in production and technology. This arms race, led by Great Britain, which mastered the mass production of rifles and launched the Industrial Revolution, eventually brought the once mighty China to its knees. By the mid-18th century, 85% of the Celestial Empire's population worked the land. In Great Britain, the Industrial Revolution was underway. and the British urgently needed new markets for their manufactured goods. The Chinese market was ideal. While only about 20 foreign vessels entered China per year in the mid-18th century, this number swelled to over 300 by the mid-19th century, driven in part by Britain's demand for tea. Great Britain sought a positive trade balance, aiming to sell more than it purchased to conserve precious metals. In 1793, King George III of Great Britain proposed a trade agreement, but the Chinese emperor dismissed the request, stating the Celestial Empire had no intention of changing its policies for foreigners. Britain was dissatisfied and began searching for a commodity to addict the Chinese market: opium. Despite the Chinese emperor banning opium imports in 1800, smuggling caused shipments to increase ninefold over 40 years. In 1839, Chinese officials demanded the British surrender their opium in Guangzhou. After the British refused, they were detained and eventually surrendered hundreds of tons of smuggled opium, which the Chinese authorities confiscated and burned. This incident gave Great Britain the pretext to invade China. In the same year, the British naval fleet initiated the First Opium War. The disparity in military technology was overwhelming. 4,000 British soldiers defeated a 90,000-strong Chinese army. China was forced to sign the humiliating Treaty of Nanjing, paying an indemnity, ceding Hong Kong to the British, and opening 5 additional ports under British administration. Smuggling opium became significantly easier. The Second Opium War began in 1856, and upon its loss, China was forced to legalize the import of opium. The sale of opium accounted for half of all exports of the British East India Company to China. More devastatingly, cultivation of opium poppy became widespread within China. By the early 20th century, 1 in every 4 adult men smoked opium. Although not formally colonized, the Chinese worldview was shattered. This national tragedy is referred to as the Century of Humiliation. The emperor's authority was fatally undermined, and China began to fragment into warring factions. By the early 20th century, the Chinese economy was in crisis. Intellectuals and the military demanded the establishment of a republic inspired by Japan's successful Meiji Restoration. The failing government attempted liberal reforms, but the slow pace and corruption fueled dissatisfaction, leading to the Xinhai Revolution of 1911 and the abdication of the last emperor. China descended into anarchy, with the 2 main political forces being the Communist Party of China and the Kuomintang, the Nationalist Party of China. This instability prompted the Empire of Japan to invade in 1937. The 2 Chinese parties temporarily united, with the Kuomintang fighting head-on and the Communist Party conducting effective guerrilla warfare. When Japan capitulated in 1945, the Kuomintang was depleted and plagued by corruption, making the Communists, led by Mao Zedong, appear more heroic and appealing to the massive peasant population. A final civil war erupted, leading to the Communist victory and the proclamation of the People's Republic of China on the 1st of October 1949. The Kuomintang fled to Taiwan, which came under the protection of the United States of America. Mao's rule, 1949 to 1976, began with the classic socialist path: nationalization, collectivization, and a planned economy, supported by the Soviet Union. The goal was a great leap, from an agrarian to an industrial economy. In 1958, Mao launched a plan to rapidly increase agricultural and industrial production, particularly steel, aiming to surpass Great Britain. This led to the creation of peasant communes and backyard furnaces, where peasants smelted everything, abandoning farm work. The resulting iron was unusable, and fields lay fallow. Concurrently, the war on 4 pests, specifically the extermination of nearly 2 billion sparrows, resulted in devastating insect infestations that destroyed crops. Mao's populist and misguided policies led to one of the most devastating famines in world history, causing between 20 and 45 million deaths. By 1970, China remained an agrarian country, where 4 out of 5 people worked the fields, and 96% lived below the poverty line. Despite the economic failures, Mao's cult of personality persisted because he brought peace, restored China's status, and introduced basic education and medical insurance, giving the ordinary person a sense of state care. However, China was still a third-world country. The true reversal of history began with the ascent of Deng Xiaoping. In 1976, Mao Zedong died, and Deng Xiaoping became the leader of China's political elite. Unlike Mao, Xiaoping was pragmatic, stating, "It doesn't matter if the cat is black or white. As long as it catches mice, it is a good cat." In December 1978, the Communist Party of China proclaimed a new course, ending blind adherence to Mao's ideology and embracing rational ideas. A practical, market-based reform began when peasants in Anhui province secretly divided collective land to work on individual plots, fulfilling the state quota and keeping the surplus. When this led to a massive increase in harvest yield, the party praised the success and extended the system across China. Agricultural productivity grew by over 1.5 times in 5 years, and collective farms largely disappeared, with land leased to individual families. This was the start of socialism, with Chinese characteristics. The sharp rise in agricultural efficiency displaced peasants, but the party permitted small businesses, allowing them to seek any work. Private business quickly grew, eventually surpassing the contribution of state-owned enterprises. To catch up with Western leaders, China sent delegations to study foreign technologies. Relations with the Soviet Union had deteriorated after Stalin's death, escalating into a border clash in 1969. Observing Soviet stagnation, Xiaoping sought ties with the West. The United States of America, following President Richard Nixon's 1972 visit, recognized a single China in 1979. Despite unofficially maintaining relations with Taiwan, Deng Xiaoping introduced political reforms, limiting the highest state office to 2 5-year terms and decentralizing power to the provinces, making local officials' careers dependent on economic growth. This structure promoted internal competition. In 1984, Xiaoping negotiated the return of Hong Kong from Great Britain with Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. They agreed on the one country, two systems model. Hong Kong would return in 1997, but maintain its independent financial and judicial system for 50 years. This former British colony became crucial, with nearly 60% of Chinese foreign direct investment passing through it. To attract foreign capital and technology, China established special economic zones along its coast, offering preferential taxes and exemptions to foreign companies. The key advantage was the cost of its labor from the planet's largest, impoverished population. These zones, like Shenzhen, saw incredible growth, proving the success of the open economy policy. Despite market reforms, the Communist Party's rule remained absolute. Xiaoping did not decultify Mao, who remained a national symbol. The socialism with Chinese characteristics allowed all reforms except for 4 untouchable tenets: the socialist path, the dictatorship of the proletariat, the leading role of the Communist Party, and the ideas of Mao Zedong. The introduction of market elements led to a dual price system, state-planned and market prices, fueling high inflation, which reached 24% by 1994. Public dissatisfaction culminated in the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests, which were suppressed by the government. Deng Xiaoping retired shortly after, but embarked on a 1,992 tour of southern China to ensure the continuation of the open economy reforms by local officials. Foreign direct investments soared following this trip. China's path to becoming the world's factory involved a systemic strategy. Initially, foreign companies could only enter through a joint venture with a local manufacturer, forcing them to share capital and technology. Local businesses then diligently copied their technologies. This systematic copying, from early automobiles to genetically modified corn and autopilot systems, as reported by the Federal Bureau of Investigation of the United States of America and Tesla, Incorporated, saved China hundreds of millions of United States dollars and allowed it to rapidly catch up. The Communist Party of China further provided priority benefits and subsidies to local companies, whether private or state-owned. Chinese investment in research and development grew and soon surpassed that of the European Union and the Empire of Japan. This combination enabled Chinese companies to produce cheap goods, acquire foreign competitors, like Zhejiang Geely Holding Group purchasing Volvo Cars and Lenovo Group acquiring Motorola Mobility, and dominate entire sectors, such as high-speed rail, where the Chinese manufacturer outpaced both Siemens Aktiengesellschaft and Alstom. The United States of America responded to China's expansion with retaliation, including President Donald Trump's anti-dumping tariffs and President Joe Biden's 2022 ban on the import of products from the Chinese telecommunications company Huawei Technologies Company. Nearly 40% of China's economy is in manufacturing, creating a paradox. While Western nations fear China's dominance, they remain the main consumers of its cheap exports. China, meanwhile, faces a problem with domestic consumption, which accounts for only 5% of its gross domestic product. The confrontation extends to geopolitics. China uses loans to gain control of strategic assets, such as leasing ports from the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, establishing a foothold in the Indian Ocean, and challenging the Republic of India. Furthermore, China is financing a new Silk Road trade route to bypass the Suez Canal and fully control Eurasian logistics. However, challenges are mounting. Playing catch-up, which allowed for consistent 8% annual growth through the low base effect and technology copying, is over. China must now innovate, and its growth rates are comparable to the American economy. Moreover, China's population has decreased in recent years, with the Republic of India surpassing it. The long-term effects of the one-child policy, 1979 to 2015, have resulted in an aging population, an increased burden on state budgets, and a gender imbalance, men unable to find wives. Although the policy was relaxed, the birth rate is not recovering. Rising living standards mean the cost of labor has increased, making China less attractive to foreign investors. Companies like Intel Corporation, Nike Incorporated, and Microsoft Corporation are relocating production to countries with cheaper labor, such as the People's Republic of Bangladesh, the United Mexican States, or the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Foreign direct investment is flowing out of China for the first time in 25 years. Understanding China's journey naturally leads to the crucial question: will its leadership continue, or will its rise be curtailed by Western sanctions and internal issues? Who will be the world economic leader tomorrow? The answer to this geopolitical and economic puzzle will likely become clear in the coming decade. Please write in the comments, what surprised you the most in this video? Give a like and subscribe to the channel. Many more interesting, shocking, and informative videos are coming up.